Okay, today we're going to be considering how to do cross-seal as part of the refraction technique. To do cross-seal, first of all, we're going to consider what we need to do the cross-seal technique in terms of equipment. The first thing we need the chart, and we need our cross-seal, which looks something like that, with a minus side and a plus side. We will need the duochrome, which is there, and also we will need the cross-seal target. Now for the cross-seal target, you can use either the dots or you can use the concentric circles, which are those. Now to start our technique of the cross-seal, we said that we will start from the point of the best vision sphere. The best vision sphere meaning the most positive lens that gives the patient the best visual acuity, or the least negative that gives them the best visual acuity. The most positive meaning that if when you start the best vision sphere you put positive lenses in, usually we start with 050 depending on the level of unaided vision, which is the level of vision without any glasses. When the patient comes in, they're not wearing any glasses, you check the level of their vision on the chart, and then from that point on you can estimate what level of the spherical power that they need. If they are long-sighted hyperopic, there would be positive lenses that you will be putting in, and you carry on putting positive lenses until the next positive lens gives them a worse vision. So what I mean by that is that you put positive lenses, it improves their vision. You increase the power, it improves their vision. You increase the power, it improves their vision, until you reach a point where you put any more positive, it makes their vision worse. So you step back, and that will be your best vision sphere on the positive side. If the patient is short-sighted, myopic, the best vision sphere will be a negative lens, so a minus lens. So you put minus lenses in front of the eye, it improves the vision, but in this time you want the least negative, so you go with very small steps, which usually is 0.25 minus 0.25 lenses. So you keep on putting those lenses until the next lens does not improve the vision anymore. Actually, what the patient will experience is that the next lens will make things smaller and darker for them. That means that you have over minus them. So you take a step back, and that would be your negative best vision sphere. Remember, we say that the cross-seal technique is the element of the refraction that helps us to find the cylindrical part of the prescription. It will help us to find the power of the cylinder, and it will help us to find the axis of the cylinder, the position of that cylinder. Now, one thing that would help us is to estimate how much of a cylinder a patient may have. And to do that, we would use the best vision sphere by looking at how far down the chart the patient is able to read with the best vision sphere in place. The lower they can go on the chart means the smaller the cylindrical power that you may find. And if the patient with the best vision sphere in place cannot go far down the chart, that means that the cylindrical element is a higher one. For example, if the patient is able to read, the last line that they could read is the 6-9 line, which is the bottom line in this case, with the best vision sphere in place, we can estimate the cylindrical power to be around -1, -0.75. If, however, on the other case, the patient is only able to go down the chart up to the 624 line, which is the bottom line here, that is telling us that with the best vision sphere in place, this patient may have a higher power of the cylinder. I would estimate around -2, -250. Before we actually start the technique, we are going to do something else which would help us to shorten the length of the cross-cylinder technique. What we do is we ask the patient with the best vision sphere in place to look at the duochrome, which is what is on the screen right now. You note that we have a red band and a green band. You have 2 concentric circles on the red and 2 concentric circles on the green. Usually, when you are using the cross-cylinder technique, you want the patient, when they are looking at the duochrome, to say that these concentric circles on the green are clearer than the ones on the red. What that means is that the image at the back of the eye is pushed right back, and then with the technique, with the cross-cylinder technique, you will be bringing it back forward again. So in a practical term, without going into too much of details, what you want to do usually is, with the best vision sphere in place, ask the patient to look at the duochrome and ask them which of the circles are clearer to them. Is it the circles on the red or the circles on the green? Now, if the circles on the red are clearer, then you put a little bit more of a minus length. So you can put -0.25. That will push the image backward, and they will report that now the circles of the green are clearer. That is the point where you start your cross-cylinder technique. Now, in here, our patient doesn't have a cylindrical power in there. There is no Cyl. His best vision sphere, or what we have in there, is only the sphere at the back of the trial set. So in this case, we have a -5, which is the best vision sphere for this patient. Now what you want to do is hold a -0.50 cross Cyl, because with a -0.50 you get a better judgment from the patient's point of view. And what you want to show them on the chart is the dots. Now, I am going to present this with looking at where the red lines are going. So first of all, I'm going to ask the patient which of my lenses that I'm going to show them will make the dots on the chart clearer for them. What I'm trying to do in this case is to try to find whether there is any cylinder or not. So what I do is I present with the lines, the red lines at 90 degrees, which is straight like this. And I ask, are the dots clearer with lens 1 or lens 2? So you saw what I did there is present the red line vertical and the red lines horizontal. So if there is any preference, that gives us an indication where the cylinder might be. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question, sir, and if you could answer that for me. Tell me which of my lenses here will make those dots clearer for you. Can you see the chart okay? Okay, is it lens 1 or lens 2?
2.
Lens 2. So the patient reports lens 2. That gives me an indication that the cylinder would be somewhere in the vertical. If I want to refine even more, I can now hold the handle vertically. That now presents the red line and black line at the cross like this. So I'm going to ask, is it clearer with lens 1 or lens 2? Or neither? 1 or 2?
Neither.
Neither. That tells me that my cylinder power is most definitely vertical at 90 degrees, because what I did is offer them the choice of moving the cylinder either side of my original position, and they rejected both, which means that the cylinder is not away from the original position. So when we started, I start again. We presented position 1, which was vertical, or position 2. The patient chose position 1. We twisted this and held it so that the cross seal is like a cross as it is presented now. Bearing in mind, we found the position 1 was preferable, which was vertical, and then we presented 1 or 2. You can see that red line moving from this side to that side. That means it's presenting an option. Is it better on this side or better on the other side? In this case, the patient says neither, which means we say that the cylinder must be around the 90 degrees position. What I would do in this case, I would place a cylinder lens, a cylindrical lens, with the axis, the power along the position that I found. You can see those 2 notches there, which tells me the position of the cylinder power. So now I can refine over that. Now we put that there. It's a minus or 50. The red lens in this case of the trial lens, a red lens is a minus lens and a black lens is a plus lens for this trial set. In some other trial sets, it can be slightly different. So I ask again to my patient, which one makes the dots clearer for you? Lens 1 or lens 2? Or neither? 1 or 2?
Neither one.
Neither one. So definitely, I'm happy that the cylinder axis is at that position. Now, the second thing to do is to now refine or find how much of a cylinder we have. Note that to find the axis power, I was holding my handle aligned with the notches or the lines on the lens. So you can see my handle is actually aligned with them. That offers the cylinder power to move each side. Now if I want to find how much power the cylinder has, I hold the notches on the lens to coincide with these on this lens here. I'm going to show it practically. So I have 1 or 2. You can see in effect that either the red or the black lines are going to coincide with the lines on the lens. If I present 1 or 2, if they prefer 2, meaning that the red falling on the notches here, that is telling me I need to add more cylinder power to that lens. If they prefer the black ones over, that means they prefer less cylinder power that is already on there. So I'm going to ask my patient, which one of my lenses here makes the dots rounder and sharper for you? Lens 1 or lens 2?
2.
Lens 2. You can see is the red side, like that they preferred. They're telling me in effect that I need to add more cylinder power to that lens that is already there, which I'm going to do. This is a minus 050 cross Cyl, so that tells me that I can add minus 050 to that lens. I already had minus 050 there. Adding another minus 050, that means I'm going to put a minus 1 lens there. So taking that one out and putting a minus 1 lens where we found the axis to be, which was 90 degrees, about there. So we have done that. We don't know yet whether that is the right power. Is it too much or is it too little? We're going to do the same again. Which one of my lenses makes the dots rounder and sharper for you? Lens 1 or lens 2?
1.
Lens 1. So that is telling me they need a little bit more cylinder power to go on there. Now, because we made a big step and they still want some more cylinder, we need to modify or to change the sphere, the best vision sphere at the back, because for every 50 0.5 minus 050 that they need on there, we need to reduce the sphere by 0.25. So because they need more, I presented 1 clearer or 2. I'll show you again. 1 or 2?
1.
1. So that was 1. It tells me that they need more, but before I make that step, because it's over 0.5, I need to change this. So from minus 5, I'm going to give them minus 475, because I'm reducing it by 0.25. So minus 050 there, and I add 025 to make it minus 0.75. Okay, so I go back on the chart again, and I say, which one would you prefer? Which one makes them rounder and sharper for you? Lens 1 or lens 2?
1.
This is 1. Okay. I changed now from an 050 to an 025 because I want to really refine it, go smaller steps. So, clearer with 1 or 2?
2.
2. So, still wanting more cylinder. So, we were on minus 1. This is minus 025. We're going to go change that lens to 025 and make it minus 125. Okay? So, and we ask the same question again. Are the dots clearer with lens 1 or lens 2? Or
1.
neither?
1.
1 or 2?
1.
1. They want another 025. So, what I'm going to do is go from minus 1.25. If I add another 025, that makes it minus 150. So I go with minus 150. So note again, from 1 I added another minus 050, which is an 050 step, which means I have to reduce at the back by 0.25. So at the back we had minus 475. I take 025 out, so we stay now with minus 450. Okay, if I ask the same question again, the dots are clearer with 1 or 2?
2.
1 or 2?
2.
Okay, and I'm going to refine also the position of the axis. So I go back with my handle aligned with the traces on the lens. You prefer lens 1? Is it clearer or 2 clearer?
1.
1 or 2?
1.
1. So I move along. So what happened in effect that the more cylinder you put, the closer to the prescription you get, the more clarity the patient gets. So they're able to judge the position of the axis much better because you are closer to the prescription. So I presented, I say, are the dots clearer with 1 or 2?
2.
And they prefer 2. If you look, the red part is on this side. So that means I need to twist this lens towards where the red part went. So we were on 90 degrees. I'm moving it, say, to 80 degrees. So, and then I'm going to follow where I moved the notches. So I still keep my handle in line with them. Wherever position I put my white notches, if I'm going to check the axis, I have to keep my handle aligned with those. So if I go back to 80 and I ask again, the dots are clearer with 1 or 2, or not much difference?
Not much different.
1 or 2, or not much difference?
Probably 1 is
a little bit on 1. So that tells me that we're nearly there, but just a very, very small step of refinement. So I'm going to move from 80 to 85. So we started at 90, I went to 80, and then I move it back to 85.
You probably can't see from that angle, but we're on 90 at the moment. It's probably just because of the angle.
Yeah, how I'm sitting here.
Yeah,
Okay,
you're
so
not looking at that's
right, 85. So I asked the same question again. Clearer with 1 or 2? Or not much difference?
1 is a
1?
little bit clearer.
Yeah. Okay. So if I went on my scale, I need to move to 85 on there. So let's say 85. Okay. 1 or 2? Or not much difference?
Do it again.
1 or 2?
2.
It tells me to move it a little bit more to this side because 2 was with the red on this side. So I move it a little bit more. And again, 1 or 2? 1 or 2? Or not much difference?
2, just a wee bit.
Just a wee bit. And again, 1 or 2? 1 or 2?
There's not much difference.
Not much difference.
Mm.
That's the end point for the axis position when the patient doesn't find a difference between one side to the other. So I've gone back to do the axis position because I've increased the cylinder power by so much that the axis position may change because now the patient is seeing much more clearer than when we originally started. So now I go back to the power and I present again aligning my lines on the lens on the cross seal with the lines on the lens on the trial frame. So I ask, the dots are clearer with 1 or 2?
2.
So he's still asking for more cylinder power, which I'm going to do. So we were on minus 150. I'm going to increase that one step and it's going to go to minus 175. And remember to put when I move the lens, remember to put it with the same position as when you removed it. So it was about, I don't know what it reads with you there, but it was 85 for me, which would be 87, about there.
Yes, that's looking 90 from here.
It's
but
looking about
yeah,
90.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we call it 90,
It's a bit over
Actually,
90 now.
really, okay, here's 85 actually, and that's where I'm finding it. So, and I show again, the dots are clearer with 1 or 2, or not much difference.
Not much different.
Okay, 1 or 2, or not much difference.
Yeah.
Okay, and sometimes when I've done that, I double check with the patient again. I don't present it again in the same order as I did before, because I went 1 or 2, they said not much difference. the next time I present 1 or 2. So I just reversed it just to catch the patient whether they made a good judgment. And if consistent, then I know that that's the end point for me. So remark that we have, on checking the power, no more difference now by adding or taking away. On checking the axis position, no more difference there. So that tells me I have found my cylinder power and I have found my axis position. So right now I have a minus 175 power at axis 85 on here. But tell me what is reading there.
Well, it reads about 88 on this.
88. So
Yeah.
thereabout. So but precisely on here is reading 85. We have a slight position problem with the camera, but on here it's 85. Okay, so once I've done that, I have now to go back to the chart to check what the patient can see now that we have put a cylinder there. So if I go to the chart, I'm gonna try to go to the smallest line and ask the patient to try and read for me.
Okay. VPNUE.
Okay, VPNUE is the 676 line. And I'm going to go even further smaller. Smaller means the patient can see well. So I'm going to go one more line. Can you try the bottom line for me?
HRZEP.
Okay, and I'm going to even try. Challenge the patient. Can you try that one for me? Difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That is, I always do that to just challenge the patient and try to get as much as possible out of them. But this is fantastic vision because he just read the 660 line, 66 line, which is 20/20 vision. But I don't just take it and stop it there. I need now to refine my best vision sphere again. So what I'm going to do is present plus or minus 0.25 to the patient while they're looking at the best line that they could read, which is the 66 line, which is the bottom line in this case. So what we're going to do is present plus 0.25 and plus minus 0.25 to the patient. So what we start, we ask the question, looking at the bottom line there, presenting the plus 0.25, listen to the question. I say, is it just as good or is it better without my lens? That bottom line, is it just as good with my lens here or is it better without my lens?
It's better without.
It's better without my lens. So you ask whether it's just as good or is it better without. When they say it's better without, they reject that lens. If they say it's just as good, in the case of a positive lens, you add that positive lens. More positive as much as possible. If they say it's just as good, give it to them. In this case, we say, is it just as good or is it better without? And they said it's better without. That means I don't have to give them the plus lens. I want to check, do they have enough minus power there? The question changes. I ask, are the letters clearer or are they just smaller and darker for you with my lens? So does this make the letters clearer or is it making the letters smaller and darker for you?
Smaller and darker.
Smaller and darker. Smaller and darker means I don't give it to them. That's over minusing. If you give minus lenses make things smaller. That means that if I give them that minus, I'm over minusing them. I'm giving them too much that they need. So I'm not going to give them that. What it tells me is that I am actually where I should be. They don't want any more plus lens. They don't want any more minus lens. They're just where they should be. and the cylinder axis is where it should be, the cylinder power is where it should be. So that is the cross-cell technique, and that is effectively your prescription for that eye. We just completed the cross-cell technique, and we found that the patient had a prescription of minus 450 sphere with a minus 175 cylinder, and the cylinder axis was at 85. And checking on the chart, they could read 66, which is the bottom line on the chart. Now, because this is a subjective technique, meaning that a technique that is relying on the patient giving you answers, there comes a need to check that, is this patient reliable? We're not saying that they're lying to you, but we're saying that, have they given the responses the way they should do? And there are ways for you to check that you did not overplus the prescription, give them more positive power than they needed, or over minus the patient, you give them more minus power than they need. To check that, there is a technique called the +1 blur technique. So you do it one at a time, and you ask the patient to read the lowest line on the chart that they could read with your final prescription in place. In this case, our patient could read the 66 line, which is the bottom line on the chart. So what you want to do from that point is present them with a +1 lens. And what this would do is, as we place this +1 lens in front of the eye, the patient should see worse than they could see before. And we're going to ask you, sir, okay, what's the best line that you could read without fuzziness now?
KRFNP.
Which is?
Oh, VRFNP. That's third from the bottom.
Third from the bottom. Okay. Now, having said that, you can see that we moved from the bottom line to this line. But he read it with a lot of hesitations. But if I say, can you read the one above you, the one you just read?
VPEFH.
Okay, so that is the best line that they could read without hesitation. All these here are blurred, but this is the best line that starts to get clearer going up the chart. So if you count those lines, is 1, 2, 3, 4. That is 4 lines. That is the result that you want to get. The +1 blur should blur the patient 4 lines above their best visual acuity. Normally, if it's from 6.6, we go to about 6.18, and that means that you did not overplus them or you did not over minus the patient. But always consider where you started from. Count 4 lines. You want to go 4 lines up. If it doesn't go 4 lines up, that means you did not give them enough plus. So if you started from 6.6 and you put +1 blur and they're still reading 6.75, you know that you did not give them enough plus. You need to review your prescription. So you didn't give them enough plus. On the other hand, if you blur them and the whole chart completely blurred with the +1 blur, it means that you may also have over minus them. So that means you go and review your prescription again. So a +1 blur is kind of a check at the end of the test that will help you to make sure that you found your right prescription and the patient has not had more plus or more minus that they needed. This technique is more used for children. because with children, they have a lot of accommodation, which is the ability to overcome a prescription. If you are refracting a child and you giving them minus prescription, they are short-sighted, and you're putting minus lenses in front, you may find that you put minus lens and they can still see through it. You put even more minus, they still can see through it, because their ability to overcome that minus is very, very strong, and it's easy to over minus them. If you put a +1 blur, it will help you to gauge whether you over minus them or not by putting a +1 in front of the eye, and if they can still see small letters, you know that they have used the accommodation to overcome your minus lenses. So you need to review your prescription again. So it's just one technique at the end of your refraction, but mostly used in children. Very, very useful tool for children.